Welcome to the Fluxcast, Volume 2. We've got two very special guests. Our first guests of the program, two brothers. We got Max and Zeke, 4. They are twins, in fact. Which one came out first?
I did.
You did?
Whopping 5 minutes early.
How do you feel about that?
I was a surprise baby.
Oh, they didn't know?
No, my parents thought they were only having one. So he came out.
Wait, you're joking? You're seriously?
Dead serious.
That's amazing.
So
that's why it took an extra 5 minutes for him to come out, because they didn't know he was there.
they're going to wrap up shop, and a doctor's like, hey, there's a foot sticking out.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
My dad said, no
2
shit.
for 1. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
the doctor's like, no, you can't name him that.
Oh my gosh, dude. These guys are fucking badasses. We're friends with them. They had pretty fucking amazing careers in the military. One was a AH-64 Apache pilot, Max, pretty impressive. And Zeke was a M1 Abrams tank commander, which is also extremely badass. And we're having you on the show because obviously this is a show about guns. Both of those whips are essentially guns that happen to move. But first and foremost, guns.
Mobile, awesome guns.
Yeah, pretty fucking amazing. And not only that, they're just regular gun nerds. So Max's gun room is pretty amazing. It's
envious.
Yeah, I thought I was into guns until I stepped into his office and I was like, I'm not the main character of the story anymore. Max is. He's got everything you can think of. And he definitely has the guntism.
I wanted all this stuff from Call of Duty.
You got some stuff that Call of Duty doesn't even
True.
know about, to be honest. And you guys are also just nerds too. You love Star Wars still. That's why Ben and I like you guys. You're just like into like stuff from your childhood still.
Yeah.
Like you didn't grow up.
Big kids.
You're like Lost Boys.
Yeah.
You're super into simulators, pretty much. You want to explain your simulator? It's pretty fucking amazing.
Yeah, when I retired from the Army, I didn't have any real aspirations of flying anymore. And the flight simulators always intrigued me. And it came, right around 2015 when they started coming out with ultra-realistic flight sim controls and the ability for the end user, which is the normal human being, to produce their own flight simulators. It's really big in England. They've been building their own 737 cockpits for years.
Huh.
And it's just really coming back to the States. And now that they have virtual reality, it's even, it's so immersive. Like, I got the simulator, and the first one they came out with for the helicopters was the UH-1 Huey.
Yeah.
And I got on my VR goggles, and I'm playing with my little SciTech controller, and I'm like, this is fucking awesome.
And yours
and I'm like,
we'll get to it later in the show. But
I need to do more. I want to build my own Huey cockpit.
Well, you ended up building an Apache cockpit,
Yes.
which we'll discuss later in the program. It's ridiculous. I don't think you could have a more authentic experience unless you enlisted, probably. It's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, big nerds, you walk into their house, and then you have just a Saturn V rocket out of Legos. How tall is it?
It's about 48 inches.
Yeah, okay. And everything is printed in your house pretty much, 3D printed, just gadgets, gizmos.
Yeah. Stuff that you can't buy, you just make yourself.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. What's in your house?
A lot of the same stuff. I've got a life-size Darth Vader that I built for my living room.
Yeah.
And I 3D printed Sebastian Shaw's head. So it's got the original Darth Vader head on it, and it's the
No way.
It's
It
the
looks
new
legit.
Black Series mask, so it's the 3-piece mask. So it's got the jaw, the
Opens
face,
up,
and then the hood. And so you take it off, and it's got his head on it. I think I got a picture of it.
Surrounded by a custom case that he built himself out of walnut.
What?
And it's full of Legos and lightsabers and
Yeah,
Luke's
I got it.
hand that he made out of silicone.
His actual hand.
I've got the Baby Yoda,
Grogu.
Grogu.
full, life size.
Dude, that's badass. Holy shit.
So he 3D printed that out and then painted it.
We'll send that to me so I can put it on the podcast so
Yeah.
you can see it. That's fucking insane.
Whoa,
dude.
I've got real swords, like legit swords. I've got on the other wall, I've got a German Ritter sword that I found when I was in Germany. that was buried for like 200 years. And it just had the hilt sticking out of the ground.
No way.
And it's still sharp.
What?
Yeah. And then I've got...
Big into knives. Got every knife you can think of.
It's a knife guy.
Yeah. 900 of the...
Bunch of antiques.
Out the fronts.
Oh, man, I can't wait to get into this. So I'm stoked for this episode. Quick housekeeping real quick. This episode is brought to you by the Snake Staff ETQ. 65% smaller than Cat Tourniquet. Has great blood occlusion still. Basically, we just wanted to make the P365 of tourniquets. So something you'd actually carry on you. It fits inside a mag caddy. So if you're appendixing, just throw it right in there. It was cool to see Dom Rosso bring it out on the Sean Ryan podcast. He is a former Dev Group cat. We didn't know he was going to do that. He just like whipped it out on his EDC episode and talked about it. Talked about how he can use it on his kids because they actually go down to a small enough diameter. So we're pretty stoked on that. And then the Fluxer of the week this week. Last episode we mentioned Travis Haley, who had a draw from his MP17, the original, which you had, one of those originals. There's not a lot of them out there actually.
They're rare.
They're rare. Anyway, he did a draw to the shoulder, 2 shots in 0.9, which was pretty impressive after it's ejected. He's a cool guy. You got to meet him.
Yeah, super cool dude.
Travis definitely believed in us before we were cool at all. We were just nerdy guys working out of our basement. And he'll be getting something in the mail. So thanks, Travis. We always start with a gift. So you guys should look underneath your chairs because this is like Oprah right here. You got something right there. What you got there?
Got some goodies down here.
Oh boy.
Nice.
So you guys both rock 365s.
Nice.
So we got you twin antimatter wings.
Nice.
For the Streamlight, and then our new compact holster. And you guys are the first ones to really get those.
Sweet.
We're not
Awesome.
even out yet. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. I'm
Thank
stoked.
you.
You guys will like it. Tell us what you think. If you want us to make any changes, we will.
Yeah, I just got a brand new mag for my 365 today.
Did you?
Yeah.
There we go. So the caddy's kind of cool. It's quick release, quick detach, I should say, like that. So you can put a tourniquet in there. We'll get you the whole hardware on there right after the show.
Hell yeah.
But cool.
Definitely going to rock that, yeah.
All right, so we're going to do a warm-up round. Numero uno. Max, what is your favorite gun in your arsenal?
That's tough. I go through phases. I mean,
You can only pick one.
probably right now, the Barrett MRAD.
Yeah.
Just because I've been buying barrels for it. So
How many barrels do you have for it now?
I have 4 now. I have a 17-inch 308, 7.62 by 51. I just got the 300 PRC. Amazing round. You know, it's the modernized 300 Win Mag.
Yeah.
I have a 300 Win Mag barrel for it. And then I have, of course, the 338 Lapua Mag barrel for it. Put a brand new glass on it that's amazing. The Night Force Attacker, 7 to 35.
Yeah, shit.
With Vortex rangefinder, their new 4000 rangefinder. And that thing's a beast, man. We took it to North Springs on Friday and we're just first round hits at 1,000 yards, man. It was insane.
Dude. All right, Zeke, your turn.
I mean, because you have different guns for different things.
Yeah, I know.
It's a toss-up. I'd say either between my Staccato P or my SBR P90, my FN P90.
You have an SBR P90.
I do.
That's nice.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a rarity right
It's stupid fun.
there. Damn.
It's just stupid fun.
50 rounds of fun.
Yeah, 50 rounds.
Second question. Best action movie of the 80s?
Predator.
Really? I thought you were going to tell me about what was that Nicolas Cage movie you showed me where it's like Top Gun, but it's for Apaches?
Oh, Firebirds.
Firebirds
if you guys
was
haven't-
great
Firebirds
in the
was-
80s.
If you guys watch this movie, it's so bad that it's brilliant.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a bad movie that it's really good.
Then it was absolutely my favorite movie. That's what made me want to fly Apaches was that movie.
I mean, it might be Nick Cage's best movie, possibly. No one knows about it, though.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Sean Young
Tommy Lee Jones.
screwed it for the whole movie.
Tommy Lee Jones is in it?
Tommy
Lee
Lee
Jones.
Jones, yeah.
He's the
Is he the
chief pilot.
instructor?
Yep.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Dale Dye's in it. He plays a young colonel.
Damn.
It's For back then in the 80s, yes, absolutely. That was my favorite movie back then.
It's a fucking good movie.
It is amazing. It is absolutely not true. So if you watch it, the Army is nothing like that.
Yeah,
But I am the greatest.
You don't use Apaches in air-to-air mode like that. And you don't choose strawberry bubblegum. But you do wear panties on your head.
Oh, really?
As long as they smell good.
He did.
Everybody has an eye dominance problem when you're flying the Apache. It's just going to happen.
And Zeke, what's yours, dude?
Conan.
Conan.
Original Conan.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
I watched it for the first time with you, actually.
Yeah.
I'd never seen it. It was one of those weird movies where you just like never see.
It's,
You know, like everyone has one where they're just like, oh, for some reason I haven't seen that famous movie.
Yeah.
It's a good one. Fuck.
I had to explain to him why I had that engraving on the side of my rifle.
Really?
This you can trust.
Well, you have a Conan blade, don't you? Like a fucking sword.
Yeah, he does too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We both do.
Yeah.
Got to have Conan blades. The
And then I built-
original's Conan swords.
I built a sofa table that sits right behind my couch that's got integrated surround sound speakers. So I integrated the speakers into it's all walnut, but it's all Conan theme. It's
Nice.
got the runes from the Atlantean sword, and it's got the in the beginning when he's making the father's sword,
Yeah.
and their god is Crom, and in the fuller of the sword it says, "Suffer no guilt, ye who will this in the name of Crom." I've got that embedded in my countertop.
Dude, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's badass.
So that's another one we need to see. So send a picture of that.
Yeah.
Well, I think people are going to be interested in, how you guys grew up. Like, how did you end up here? What was it like growing up? When did you start playing Army, man? Like, I'm assuming you guys were into knives and guns and shit as kids.
Oh yeah, my father was a cabinet maker, expert cabinet maker. Man, he could anything out of wood you can think of, he can make it.
Wow.
So as soon as we were old enough to know what GI Joe was, we were making plywood M60s with belt fed, running out of your construction tape, your string.
Yeah.
We had belt fed M60 with little bullets that we handmade and just wrapping around like Stallone.
Running through the woods. Yeah.
Where does it come from? Like, was your dad in the military or?
Our dad was a Green Beret
Okay.
in Vietnam.
I didn't know that.
And then
medic.
our stepdad was also in the Marine Corps. He did 3 tours in Vietnam.
Back
shit.
to back.
Wow.
So we didn't grow up in the military. Like we didn't.
Yeah.
They were out of the military before we were
By
even
then.
born.
Yeah.
But it was just kind of a.
Did they talk about it or not really?
No.
Yeah, not so much. It wasn't a major influencing factor,
Interesting.
but it was always present. Like,
But he didn't
I knew my
discourage you.
dad was in Vietnam. I knew he was a Green Beret. I knew he was a medic. We were poor kids in a rich town.
Yeah.
So we didn't have a lot of friends except each other.
Yeah.
And it was just, that's what we did. We liked to build forts in our yard. We dug a 6-foot by 10-foot hole. My dad had a bunch of spare wood. We filled it over. And it was our bunker. It was our hangout.
We took some surgical tubing and made a slingshot so we could sling rocks across 3 counties.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh. And
then at the end, it was an escape.
Yeah.
It was a way to get out on our own.
Huh.
I mean, we left for basic training 5 days after we graduated high school.
You guys both left.
Yeah.
We came in on the buddy program. We went to basic training together. We went to AIT together. And we went to our first duty station
I
together.
didn't know that.
Yeah. I mean, we were stationed together in Virginia for 3 years, and then I reclassed to become a 19 Delta Scout, and I went to Korea for a year.
Huh.
And then I got to Fort Hood.
Scout sniper.
Damn.
And I was like, you know what? I got an opportunity here to apply for the scholarship. I applied for a 4-year scholarship, and I got accepted. There was 5,000 people that put in for it, and 5 of us got the 4-year scholarship that year.
Where to?
Any school we wanted to, really.
What?
It was an Army scholarship, so it's a program called Green to Gold, where the Army will pay for your college. And at the time I applied for it, you had to go to a school where whites were a minority to try and,
Interesting.
So I applied to Kent State University in Ohio.
Okay.
And I applied to Florida State University in Florida, and then the University of Utah here. And I got accepted in all of them, but then my mom got diagnosed with breast cancer, so I ended up coming here just to be closer to her, to help her out.
Yeah.
And ended up being pretty good. You know, did my 4 years. The Army paid for it all, and I had a job, but all the money that I earned. So I worked at Gallinson's for 4 years.
Shout out to Gallinson's.
All of my paychecks went back to Gallinson's. Yeah. So
our favorite gun shop for sure.
Yeah.
Dude, that's crazy. No way.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Were you already in the track to become, to go armor or not really?
So a 19 Delta Scout is in the armor realm.
Okay.
There's two 19 series enlisted size. There's 19 Delta, which are the scouts, and there's 19 kilos, which are the tankers.
Okay.
And they're always tied together. So you've got, there's three kind of brigades in the Army. There's an infantry brigade combat team, a striker brigade combat team, and an armor brigade. So light, medium, and heavy.
Yeah, makes sense.
And each of those are going to have a reconnaissance element associated with it. So you're going to have scouts.
Yep. Okay.
And then the striker brigade has the mobile gun system, which has 19 kilos, so the tankers. And then, of course, the heavy has all the tanks. So that's where most of the 19 kilos go. But they also have a reconnaissance element as well. So when I was real life scout back in 97, 98, I was in 2-9 infantry in Korea. So I was in an infantry battalion, but I was in a reconnaissance platoon, scout platoon in Korea doing real scouting stuff.
Really?
Yeah, real world stuff.
Huh. What was Korea like?
In 98, it was different, a lot different than it is now. We couldn't leave base without permission. You had to have permission to leave base.
Wow.
You couldn't drive. You couldn't own a car. I was stationed in Camp Casey, which is way up towards the north, and we did a lot of exercises on the DMZ, Panmunjom up there. Excuse me. And, it was always, you were always on alert, always. If the alarm went off, me as a scout platoon guy, we had 45 minutes from the time the alarm started to get our vehicles out the gate. So all of our ammo was stored behind our vehicles in the motor pool. The motor pool had 24-hour security on it. We had guards. The alarm would go off. I was an arms room rep, so I would go straight to the arms room, and I'd start issuing out weapons.
Wow.
And get all my weapons. We had priority as the scouts. We'd get all our stuff positioned, staged, up and running, comms checks, out the gate.
What platform were you on?
Humvee.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what weapons platform were you on?
We had 50 cals and Mark 19s.
Mark 19s.
So the 40 millimeter grenade launcher.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Love that gun.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's freaking. So while he was doing that, what were you doing?
I deployed to Bosnia in 1998, and I was the movement control NCO for all of the equipment coming in and out of the Balkans region. So I traveled a lot. I went to Tezar, Hungary, down into Slavonski Brod, Croatia, down to Tuzla, Bosnia, down into Sarajevo, and I did a lot of just movement stuff. So a lot of convoys. I wasn't like a convoy as far as like typical transportation, like fuel and bullets and stuff. We did a lot of VIP convoys and a lot of USO.
Yeah.
When the celebrities had come over, I had my own translator. His name was Gabor Kovacs. He played for the Hungarian national football team, which is soccer in America. Was big in that, and then of course the war kicked off, and so
you were there when the war kicked off, or
98. It was a peacekeeping mission.
Yeah.
So technically, the Serbs and Croats were still at war with each other. We were just there to keep the peace.
Yeah.
There was still a lot going on, and I mean, it was a peacekeeping mission, so it wasn't combat, but it was hazardous duty pay, and it was interesting time. Scott O'Grady got shot down over there, and so at the same time I was there, he was an F-16 pilot.
Really?
We lost the first ever F-117 stealth fighter over there during that time, and it was hostile, but it was not towards us.
Okay, you just happened to be kind of in the crossfire sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the first time I ever saw an Apache in real life was over there.
Did that spark anything? Or?
Oh, absolutely. That's. I mean, I always knew I wanted. Even in my high school yearbook, they put in there what you're going to do after high school, and I put, I want to fly Apache helicopters.
But you did kind of take a detour, like
I was actually in the Q course. Yeah. I had gone through selection and got selected, and I was going to be a weapons sergeant 18 Bravo. This is pre 9/11, so I was going through the Q course. I did small unit tactics, and I was getting ready to start up the 18 Bravo course. And they called me into the NCO IC's office and said, "Hey, you came down on orders for recruiting, so you're going to go be a recruiter because we don't really need SF guys right now because it's they're drawing down."
That's gotta feel fucking terrible to go from that to recruiting.
Yeah, it sucked. It was a gut punch for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did you think about just quitting and?
I tried to quit without signing a declination statement declining the school because I would have lost my promotable status. It would have been a career ender. I went and I tried to fail all the tests. And the commandant of the recruiting school called me into his office and he said, "You don't want to be here." And I said, "No, I do not." He says, "Well, I have to pass you because we need recruiters."
Oh, shit.
So he said, "You're going to be a recruiter."
So how long were you a recruiter for?
To be USAREC assigned, it was a 3-year tour. And I actually did, they told me after 24 months I could sign a waiver and go back to the Q course. Of course, now 9/11 happened. Now they need SF guys.
Yeah.
And I had a waiver to go back, but the Army wouldn't let you PCS, permanently change stations, within 24 months because they have to pay for it. And so you have to do 24 months a minimum on duty before they'll allow you to PCS again. And in that time, my company first sergeant had put me on orders to involuntarily convert me to a full-time recruiter as my MOS, as a 79 Romeo. And I was like, "Yeah, I don't think so." And so I put in the warrant officer packet to go to flight school, and I got picked up, and I was out of there in 2 months.
Were they happy about that?
They were not. I was, even though I hated recruiting and I didn't want to be there, I was actually a really good recruiter because I told the truth. I didn't try and BS anybody. And I got a lot of females to join the Army.
All right.
I did.
He put a little army in them.
Oh, my God. Oh, holy shit. I mean, the trajectory is pretty crazy that you went, but you ended up where you were supposed to be. There's something about being able to control a 30 millimeter cannon with your head. Is it a 20 or 30?
30.
30, yeah. And wherever you look, if you guys don't know, it's slaved to the pilot's helmet. Is that correct?
Yes.
Want to explain that?
There's sensors behind the pilot's head. In the Delta model Apache, the Echo model actually has a magnetic pickup that goes on top of the helmet that's wired. But for my helicopter, the Delta model, it had IR. It basically made an IR box inside the cockpit, and then there was 2 little sensors on each side of the helmet that when you got in the aircraft and powered it up, the IR box lit up, the lights on your helmet lit up, and there was a bore sight reticle unit on top of the dashboard where the aircraft knew that was absolute. So wherever that bore sight reticle unit was, it's never going to change. So you would actually configure the cockpit and you would slave your head to the aircraft by looking at this bore sight reticle unit via the monocle that's over your right eye, and then you'd slave it to the aircraft. So now the aircraft knows, okay, he's looking at the bore sight reticle unit, he's got the crosshairs lined up on the circles. That's a known. Now we know where his head is at all times, and so the aircraft knows when you turn your head exactly where it's going to move. So you can use the optics on the nose of the aircraft, and so there's 2 optics: the Target Acquisition Designation System, or the TADS bucket, is the big one on the bottom, and then the PINVIS is the Pilot's Night Vision System is on the top, and it'll move as fast as you can move your head. The PINVIS will, and you can always tell when you land who was in the front seat or who was in the back seat at night, because the pilot could just move his head around, but the co-pilot gunner, he'd be looking over here, and you'd ask him a question over here and be like, because that's how fast the TADS would move. And if you moved your head too fast, you get really sick. But it was cool.
It's funny. I thought about, because this week everyone's going crazy about what's the stupid Apple, it's like the augmented reality goggles that they have right now. But you guys had that in the 70s.
Yeah.
Because when was the Apache designed? Was it 60s,
77.
It's fucking crazy. And it basically is augmented reality.
Yeah.
You're looking through.
It's just not here. It's 6 feet below you and 12 feet in front of you if you're in the back seat, because that's where the sensor is.
Which is crazy because it's still one of the, probably is the preeminent helicopter still in the world. And it's that 70s tech.
Well, even the new stuff,
That
the new
engineering is
modernized
insane.
TADS bucket is got fused night vision and FLIR.
It's
And you can
so
see
fucking cool.
you can see the filament in a light bulb 12 miles away, and it's awesome.
When was the Abrams design?
Abrams started out, and they started looking at it in the 60s.
In the 60s.
Yeah, the first one came out, I think, 82, something like that. I don't know
So it's
the
almost
history
kind
of
of
it too
around the
much,
same
but
time,
yeah.
really. And
But
that
I
was
mean,
basically
that was the original
Cold War
Abrams.
shit.
Yeah.
They were worried about going across Germany, correct? With
The
both
Fulda Gap in Germany.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that the Apache was designed for.
Yeah.
But I mean, the stuff we have out now, I mean, it's continually upgraded. So the new tanks, the SEP V3s, are pretty legit. I mean, I was on a SEP V2 for a while before I went to Strikers, but
We got to rewind. So we kind of heard your story. How did you get into becoming a tank commander? Like,
so when I was in Fort Hood as a 19 Delta, I was assigned to Bravo Troop 110 Cav in 4th Infantry Division, and they had just deployed to Operation Bright Star in Egypt, and I didn't get to go because I had just come from Korea. So I got staged at the front in-processing desk at Fort Hood. So I was the first guy you saw when you reported to Fort Hood. That was me.
wow.
And it was 24 hours on, 48 hours off every day. It sucked. It was horrible. I hated it. First, I did it for 8 months. And I put in my SF packet and I put in my green to gold packet at the same time. And I was just waiting. And the green to gold packet came back first. So I ended up going to college. And then when you went to college, you go through all the branch assessments and all that stuff. And there's 16 branches in the Army. And you basically, you can put them in order of preference to which one you want. And you're not guaranteed your first choice. But it's basically a bracket system. They've got it breaking into 30% range, and then the top 10%. So if you do really well throughout college, you get good grades, you do well at PT, and then you do well at the advanced course, then you get what's an order of merit based system. So if you're in the top 10%, you're pretty much guaranteed your first
Get
choice.
your shit. Okay. Huh.
And then the next 90% is broken into thirds. So the way they do it that way, they used to do it. They don't do it that way anymore. It's a different system now. It's interest based and score based and stuff now. But the way they used to do it was, if you were in the top percentage of the middle third, then you probably weren't going to get your first choice. You might not even get your fifth choice. But this guy up here at the bottom of the top percent, he had a better chance of getting his. This guy down here in the bottom of the bottom of the percent, he had a better chance of getting his first choice than the guy at the bottom of the top third. That way the Army looked at it and said, okay, not all the awesome, really good, high-scoring guys are all going to go infantry or armor.
They don't want that. Okay.
They're going to get some shit bags in infantry or armor because they're going to get weeded out when they get to their advanced individual training or their officer training, whatever. So it kind of evens out the good guys.
Okay.
But I was in the top 10%, so I got my first choice, which was armor.
Did you want Abrams?
I wanted, you're not guaranteed Abrams, but
Because you weren't guaranteed an Apache. It could have been a Black Hawk or anything. And then you
It's
scored
kind
high
of the
enough.
same thing. Kind of the same thing. It's an order of merit. So
Really? You get to choose.
yeah, so same thing. You put your wish list down, and at the time they had Apaches, Kiowas, Chinooks, and Blackhawks.
Yeah.
And I put down Apache for all of them, and they came back and they're like, "No, you got to put down the other ones." And then it's kind of order of merit. So at the top guy in the class, they say they got, all right, we got 10 slots for Apaches, we got 10 slots for Kiowas, we got 50 slots for Blackhawks, and we got 100 slots for Chinooks or whatever. And then the first guy goes up and he scratches off what he wants. Well, he wanted Blackhawks. Well, he's guaranteed Blackhawks. And then the next guy goes up and then all the way to the end. So yeah, if there's only 10 slots for Apaches and you're number 50 and then 10 of them go, then you're done. So, but
Kind of the same thing with you?
no, not really.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's kind of luck of the draw, really. I don't know how I picked armor. I got my first choice because that's what the Army decided they wanted to put me in. I don't know why, but then the reason I picked armor is because as an armor officer, you can go do the infantry stuff. You can, you know, if an infantry position is short officers, then they can plug you in there. They can't take an infantry guy and plug him in an Abrams company. It's not going to happen.
Got it.
If they do, he's like maybe the battalion, you know, S4 or something, you know, the logistics guy or something. They're not going to put an infantry guy in a tank without training.
That makes sense.
So my options were a little bit bigger, but they're a little bit more constrained at the same time because, well, at the time it was a lot because they had the armor branch wanted you to have all of the experiences. They wanted you to experience light. They wanted you to experience medium. They wanted you to experience heavy. Whereas now they're looking at it like, okay, if you're going to be an armor guy, then you're going to be in a heavy brigade, and that's what you're going to do. You're just going to do heavy stuff. But it wasn't like that when I came through. Of course, when I graduated in 2005, you know, the war was kicking off in Iraq.
Yeah.
And I actually, so once I got branched, I knew what my branch was at the end of my junior year. And then going into my senior year, I didn't know where I was going to be stationed until after I graduated and I got orders. And they have the same thing. You got a wish list. You got all the places where there's tanks and armor, and you put them on a wish list. And my orders came down, and they assigned me to the 101st Airborne, which wasn't even on my list. Like, there's no tanks, the 101st. It's all light. Like, that's weird. And then I get to the Armor Officer Basic course at Knox, and there were 12 of us that were all assigned to the 101st in that class because the Army had just opened up this new position called Reconnaissance, Intelligence, Surveillance, and Target Acquisition Unit. It's called the RISTA Squadron. And the 101st had them. And so they were sending all 12 of us in armor school. Not only did we have to go to armor school, we had to do additional training on Humvees and Bradleys that the other guys didn't get, so the light and the medium.
Yeah.
And then after we graduated to armor school, it was mandatory scout leader course and mandatory ranger school, which was cool for me.
Wow.
Yeah, because I've been trying to go to ranger school for like 5 years at that point. So I'm like, shit, yeah, let's go.
Wow.
So we went to the scout leader course, and 11 of us graduated that. One guy got a certificate of training, but he didn't meet the requirements to graduate.
Okay.
And then all 12 of us reported to ranger school, and only 2 of us graduated ranger school. So while the other 10 guys dropped out, they all reported to Campbell, and they all got platoon leader jobs in the RISTA squadron.
Yeah.
The 2 of us ranger guys, we show up, and they're like, hey, all the jobs are full in the RISTA squadrons. We don't have a job for you, so we're going to send you the Pathfinders, which was fucking cool for me. Right? So I went.
What are the Pathfinders? I don't really know.
So the Pathfinders, there's 2 Pathfinder companies. At the time, there were 2 in the 101st.
Okay.
Each one was assigned to an aviation brigade because the 101st has its own aviation brigade. They have their own assets. So the Pathfinders would set up landing zones, drop zones, HLZs, DZs, things like that. That was kind of their job.
Okay.
They would go in ahead of the scouts and ahead of everybody and find spots for the helicopters to land and now bring in the scouts or bring in the infantry or bring in the rangers or whatever. So it was really good opportunity because I got a lot of cool training, but as in the Pathfinder company, we got attached to the division headquarters for the 101st. So there was 2 platoons. As a Pathfinder, I was the very first ever authorized Pathfinder platoon leader in the Army because they just opened up actual platoons. Before it was just a LRS-D detachment. So LRS-D is long range reconnaissance surveillance. So they were like little detachments. They weren't actual units. But then they made actual companies. So we had a company commander. There's only 2 platoons, and there was only 18 dudes in each platoon. So it wasn't really a platoon. Normally a platoon was like 30 guys. So I had 18 guys in my platoon. I had 2 squads, essentially. And one of my squads was in charge of the security for the assistant division commander for operations of the 101st. And the other guy was the assistant division commander for support. So 2 one-star generals. And then the other platoon, they were the protective services detail for the commanding general and the sergeant major of the 101st.
It's crazy. So you ended up doing PSD?
So I did PSD for my tour in Iraq, which was great because I got to go everywhere. General, the one.
Did you guys go around the same time? or
We could
what was the
never
gap?
be
Well,
deployed at the same
at
time.
the same time.
Because we're the only sons.
Because of the
So it was like he'd go,
Saving
come back,
Private
then
Ryan
I'd go, and then
rule?
he'd go, then I'd
Yeah.
go.
is that literally?
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
Yep.
Sole surviving sons or something like that.
Yep.
Holy shit. That's wild.
Yeah.
So you did PSD your first tour. What were you doing your first tour? Were you flying at that point?
As soon as I got out of flight school, I went straight to Korea.
Okay.
And so now I'm in Korea again. And my unit was supposed to deploy from Korea to Afghanistan. So I extended an extra year to deploy to Afghanistan, and then they canceled it. So now I'm stuck in Korea for 2 years. And then they decided that our unit, the half attack, was going to move to Fort Carson, Colorado. So we picked up everything and moved to Fort Carson. And then we deployed from there to Afghanistan.
Interesting.
And this is
What year?
2013.
Okay.
2013 and 14. And I went to RC South, we were stationed at Tarankout, which is in the Arghandab River Valley north of Kandahar. So we did basically, we were direct support for the Australian version of our Delta Force. They're called FE Alphas. And then they had a SF unit there, which was called FE Bravos. So the FE Alpha guys were like super secret squirrels, and they'd go after high value targets, HVTs. And then the FE Bravos they're Australian special forces, and they do like village clearances and stuff like that. We were direct support for them. And then we also did a lot of support for our special operations guys, Navy SEALs, SF dudes, and they had their little cops out there in the middle of the nowhere, and we didn't run DS for them. And if it was a nice day, we'd do convoy route security. We'd just go out and pimp ourselves out. It was pretty fun.
How much were you doing like night cycles versus flying in the day?
It depended on, really, I liked flying at night, so I didn't mind doing the night stuff because you'd always catch ID guys putting IDs at night, so we'd get to smoke a lot of dudes at night. And then all the swoopty guys liked working at night because, we have night vision, the bad guys don't. So, yeah. So I got really good at flying nights. They left me on nights for a long time. I think I got like 892 flight hours
At night.
over there and probably 600 or more a night.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy. I was gonna ask what we're starting to get into, some of the deployment stuff. What was the biggest pucker factor moment that you had in an Apache and in an Abrams when you were like, holy shit, little poo came out? Just a scary situation that happened. We'll start with Zeke.
So I had like 3, I would call them near-death experiences throughout my deployments, and none of them were on tanks. They were all when I was light. Probably the one where I was puckered up so tight that you couldn't pull a needle out of my ass with a forklift was I was in the Arghandab River Valley. It was my second deployment to Afghanistan, and we were on this little outpost at the Arghandab District Center, and we got rocketed a lot, like 107 millimeter Chinese rockets, at least 3 a week, at least.
Wow.
But where we were out also right next to a shrine, and the bad guys didn't want to hit the shrine, so they weren't very accurate. But they attacked our COP one day, our combat outpost, and I was up on a tower I was a planner. I was the S3 planner at the time, so I was the guy in charge of planning all the operations and stuff. And the fire support officer, a good buddy of mine named Dave, he was there with me, and so we were on this tower, and we're watching, and we're just trying to see if we can actually shoot somebody because, we were staff at the time, so I wasn't out on patrols all the time. Yeah. But so we were just trying to see if we could shoot somebody, and we saw this rocket get launched from the other side of the river, and it was just coming straight for us. And just watching the contrail. And I looked over at Dave, and Dave looked over at me, and Dave goes, "I love you, Zeke, man." And I'm like, "Hit the deck." And we were trying to melt into the concrete. Just make ourselves part of the concrete because that rocket was coming straight for us. And it hit probably, 50 feet short of where we were. Yeah. And it was knocking dust and everything on top of us. And we just kind of looked at each other and we're like, holy shit, right? I mean, it was coming straight for us.
Wow.
That was probably the most pucker factor.
50 feet short.
Yeah.
Jeez.
We were watching it just come straight at us. Like we thought that was it.
When you were in the tank, what were you guys worried about? IEDs? Like what's really the danger there? Because
when you're on a tank, you're really not worried about anything. So they've got the EFPs, the explosive force projectiles. Those are a little dangerous, and then the RPG-7s will kind of mess with you a little bit. But you kind of got this feeling that you're on top of the world. We were talking about how cool SF is earlier.
Yeah.
And, my brother and I, because of our dad, we always had this desire to go that route. But when I was at Fort Carson and I was on the way to the range one day, and I'm sitting there and I got my 50 cal in front of me in the commander station, and it's got these big ape hangers, look like ape hangers on a motorcycle. And you just got your hands up there and you're chilling and you're cruising along at like 40 miles an hour. And you look over and all the SF guys are on their road march with their 100-pound rucksacks. And they're just like, and they look up and you can see in their face, they're like, man, I wish I was a tanker right now. And they all pull out their phones and start recording as you're driving past. Yeah. That's when you're like, yeah, this is cool.
Yeah.
But shit. I tell you, there's nothing like pulling the trigger on a service round.
Well, dude, you told me, I think you told me once that when a Sabo like impacts another, like an enemy vehicle or tank or whatever, it basically creates a vacuum. Is that what like explain that? That's super interesting.
It's it makes a little hole going in and then a bigger hole going out, and it kind of sucks everything out. The hole creates like a vacuum inside. But the idea behind it is that it's traveling so fast that it melts the armor.
Okay.
And the molten metal that's bouncing around inside the enemy vehicle is igniting the fuel tanks and igniting the ammo. So like in a T-72 or a Russian tank, the ammo's stored in the floor.
Yeah.
That's why when you see them, they get hit and the turrets blow off because all that ammo that's in the floor is exploding and blowing the turret off, and it's flying through the air.
I saw that video of that Bradley taking out that T-90 in Ukraine. That was pretty wild.
Yeah.
Did the same thing.
Was it with a tow?
No,
tow missile?
25.
Oh, I didn't see it. I'll have to check that out. Yeah.
Pretty cool, actually. The gunner in the Bradley said he remembered from World of Tanks or some kind of like video game where like the soft spot of the T-90 was. He literally said that. That was like how we destroyed it from a video game. It's
nice.
pretty funny.
Yeah. And there's definitely spots that you look for.
Yeah.
But it depends on what ammo you're using too. Because there's different rounds that you got in the tank.
And you have 2 Bronze Stars, is that correct?
Yes.
Oh. Could you talk about that at all, or not really?
They're just, mine aren't for Valor. Mine are just, you want to call it a Jive Bronze Star. When you deploy and you're in a combat operation, and when you hold certain positions, when you're in like a leadership position, or a significant position that attributes to the combat operations, then that's kind of like the award that you get. Either get that or a meritorious service medal, and it depends on, again, like the level you're at. Like your average soldier is probably you get a deployment award, and then you get like the end of tour award. So like the deployment award would be the Iraqi campaign medal or whatever, and then your end of tour award would be, if you held a certain position, if you were an E1 and you did your job and you came home alive, then you'd probably get an Army Achievement Medal as your end of tour award. E4, E5, you're probably going to get an Army Commendation Medal. If you're in a leadership position like an E7 platoon sergeant, or company commander, company first sergeant, you're going to get a Bronze Star.
Interesting.
If you're out doing actual combat stuff. If you're not actually doing combat stuff, you're probably going to get a meritorious service medal.
What was your biggest pucker factor moment?
There was one time in Afghanistan where we were doing direct support for an SF unit, and I was flying at night with guys that didn't normally fly at night, but it was an easy mission, so we were like, they were okay with flying it because we were just gonna go do idiot circles in the sky and then come back to the airfield. And so one of the other pilots was a maintenance test pilot who they typically don't fly at night except for to make their minimum hours requirements. And we were out flying at night, and it was beautiful night, and then all of a sudden the weather started getting bad really fast. And we were way down south of our airfield and in between two giant mountain ranges, and the weather came in, and it was getting to the point where the helicopter blades, I could see the other aircraft was actually creating clouds. There was so much moisture in the air. And it's pretty cool to watch it create air wisps like that. And so I got on the radio and I was like, hey, it's getting kind of poopy weather here. We should start heading back. And they agreed. So we started to get ready to go back, and it came in, socked us in out of nowhere. And so now we're like, the other gentleman, the maintenance test pilot, he didn't want to, we'll call it punching in, going inadvertent IMC because of all the mountains around Afghanistan. And he didn't want to commit because he's a day pilot and we don't typically fly in that element. And so I was like, well, I'm not gonna leave him.
Yeah.
And so I was like, look, we can call the closest FOB and see if they'll let us land, declare an emergency and land outside the FOB, and they can pull security for us. So we tried to call them, and they're like, the closest FOB was Front Neck. It was like 50 miles away. And they were like, yeah, heck yeah, come on, we'll pull security for you. And then we started heading that way, and we realized that we couldn't even make it to Front Neck. The weather was so bad. So now we're stuck doing circles in this little bowl, basically. And we're trying to come up with an idea of landing the aircraft so that we're 180 degrees off from each other, so we still had 360-degree view with the FLIR. And then we were just going to pull our own security until the weather got out. And we decided that wasn't a good idea because we're in a bad part of town. And so right about then, the weather was so bad that our FLIR wasn't even working. There's a thing at nighttime, it's called IR crossover, where the ground and the sky are the same temperature, so thermals don't work.
Jeez.
And so, yeah, the pucker factor was, I call it sphincter factor 4. On a scale of 5, it's sphincter factor 4 right now. And so I said, all right, look, Jimmy, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to find the MSR, the main supply route, because I know it goes from Kandahar to Tarankot. There might be wires. We'll keep an eye on them. There might not be, but pretty much they robbed all the copper wire out of all the cables, so there shouldn't be wires. So I'm going to find the road, and I'm going to fly over the road to the north, and I'm going to turn on all my lights, and you're going to follow me. So I got down to like 6 feet, and I found the MSR, and we followed it all the way back to Tarankot.
Wow.
In the fog.
That is gnarly.
And
you were 6 feet high.
When I got out of the aircraft, I had to pull the seat cushion out of my ass. It was pretty scary.
That sounds gnarly.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So, but we made it back and lived to tell another day.
Jeez, dude.
That was pretty scary.
That's pretty gnarly, man.
Yeah.
Something I like about you guys too, it's like you have really cool jobs now. It's not just like what you did in the past. Like you guys are like moving on with your lives, and you're not kind of like resting on your laurels. Like you guys are doing cool jobs now. Like you do EP for an unnamed person who's super cool. And you also just got a recent job flying life flight, right?
Yeah.
It's freaking epic. So instead of stacking bodies, you are now saving
That's
bodies.
exactly what I told the HR guy on my resume.
Yeah.
She asked me, she's like, why do you want to do this job? I told her, I said, well, I spent the last 22 years killing people. I guess I could save them now.
Yeah.
She thought it was pretty cool. I think that's what got me the job. So.
That's pretty epic. Are you liking it so far?
Yeah, it's great. I fly Bell 407. I'm a float guy, so I go wherever they need me. I've been going to...
It's a little
Scottsbluff.
lighter than an Apache, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the Apache weighed like 17,500 pounds. I think this one weighs 5,200 pounds.
A little bit more nimble.
And we carried as much gas in the Apache as this thing weighs.
Oh my god. So that's awesome. And Zeke, you're a cop in the great state of Texas.
I am, yeah.
I think we should petition for you to have your patrol car be an M1 Abrams.
I would totally do that. Yeah.
I actually think that like the great people of Texas would enjoy being pulled over by an M1 Abrams. They'd be like, oh, this is kind of fun.
Well, I wouldn't have to chase them very far, that's for sure.
Yeah, you could just pancake them.
Yeah, or I'd just shoot them.
What would be really cool is if his department had Flux Raiders.
Yes.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Yeah. Well, I think the Raider would be like the best tank weapon ever. Like, personal sidearm for on tanks. Yeah.
Yeah. What did you guys have? Just M4s and
we
stuff?
had M9s.
You had M9s. That was it.
Well,
I mean, you got your 50 and
you got a coax 240. The loader's got a 240 and then the 50 cal. But as far as personal weapons went, most of it was. I mean, it was all M9s. We had M4s, but they were in the stowage bins. Oh, we'd only ever pull them out when
fast.
No, and you didn't need to unless you dismounted off the tank.
Huh.
So if you got off the tank, then you'd have to go. But like if I got off, I'd have to. All I'd have was my M9. And then they came out with the 320, which is a company commander. That 320, which is the grenade launcher that replaced the M203.
Yeah.
But it's now a standalone unit.
Yeah.
Which was great as a tank commander because I could carry smoke, I could carry flares, I could carry, HEDP rounds. They had buckshot rounds. But as a commander of a tank unit, if comms went down or you didn't have line of sight and you needed to signal your other tanks, you could, if you guys see green flare, that means lift fire. If you see red flare, it means shift fire, whatever. So now I've got an opportunity to still communicate with my tanks but not use the radios, which was great.
How often would radios go down?
Be surprised.
Really?
Yeah, it's not so much that the radios went down, but a lot of the stuff is line of sight. And when you're in the desert and you've got 14 tanks in your company and they're separated by 5 kilometers, so now you've got an 80-kilometer wide front for one company, then the radios aren't going to go 80K.
Yeah, no.
You've got sand berms and everything in between, so it's a little bit different fighting in the desert than it is in like a wooded area where you might have all of your tanks in a 4K wide thing, for area front, whatever. But
is the Abrams still the premier tank in the world? Do you think?
Oh yeah,
yeah,
without a doubt.
How come?
Just the capabilities that it has. I can't talk too much about it, but the capabilities, especially with the new ones with the Crows, the remote control weapon station that the commander has, the 50 cal instead of a.
So he's not out of the turret.
It's a stabilized platform now versus an unstabilized platform, so it's considerably more accurate. And then just the ammo that we use is.
You're saying it's like a gyroscope, essentially, on the 50, or
yeah,
and it's in the main gun actually, like.
Well, so the main gun's stabilized, yeah,
which is pretty wild.
It's great because as a gunner, you've got what's called the Cadillacs. It's the gunner's control, and as soon as you squeeze the grips, it stabilizes the main gun tube. So if there's a target over here and you got your crosshairs on it, the crosshairs are going to stay on that target no matter what the hull is doing. The hull is traversing left or right or up and down over hills and stuff. The gun is going to stay on it.
That is insane.
Yeah, it's great.
I mean, I can't imagine the engineering behind that because, we have that in, like, the videography world. You got, like, camera stabilizers that are just, that's the new thing or whatever. It's been around for a couple of years, but they're trying to, maybe at the max, you're doing, like, 10-pound setup, whereas, like, you've got a fucking 120 millimeter cannon that you're stabilizing.
But the concept's the same.
It's insane, though.
Yeah.
Especially that it was back in the 70s.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
It was the first tank that could move and shoot at the same time because of that stabilization system.
You were telling me that the cannon on the Apache also has, it's actually too accurate and it has something that makes it go back and forth just to spread the rounds a little bit. Tell me about that.
Well, it's got 2 hydraulic dampers on each side because, like I said, the Apache was designed for the horde of Russians coming through the Fulda Gap in Germany, and when they first put the M230 chain gun on it, it was too accurate. It was like a sniper gun, and all the rounds were going at the same spot. So they put these 2 hydraulic dampeners on it because it's an area weapon, so that it would disperse the rounds. Because the idea was the Russian tanks coming across the gap would have their commanders out in the cupola on their 14-7 Dishkas or whatever, and then they see a bunch of Apaches and they start shooting at the Apaches. So you'd fire the 30 at them, it'd bounce around, they'd get back down in their hole. Now they went from a whole view of the sky to this little hole through their cannon. Then you just start launching hillfires at them.
Oh, it's to get their heads down.
Yeah, to get them back in their tanks. And then they figured out it was a great anti-personnel weapon because the 30 millimeter is basically grenades.
Yeah.
They're high explosive dual purpose 30 millimeter rounds.
What is the blast radius of that?
I think it's like a 15 meter kill radius and a
15?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy shit. And each one is essentially a grenade.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
It can penetrate 14 inches of rolled homogeneous steel at 4,200 yards.
Whoa.
Yeah. Pretty awesome round. Matter of fact, the Crow system, they're putting the M230s on them now, on some of them.
Really?
Yeah. Like when I was in Germany, we tried out this new striker variant. They call it the Dragoon.
Yeah.
And it's got a 30 millimeter on it, but it doesn't shoot the 30 millimeter Apache round. It shoots the Avenger, the A10 round.
Oh, really?
So it's a Coke bottle, It's like this size around. And cool thing about it is it takes the stabilization to a different level. So you've got a line of troops and they're walking kind of at an oblique. So they're coming towards you, but also at a sideways angle, right?
Okay.
Normally you want to get troops if they're going perpendicular to you because it's easy. You just start mowing them down, right? Versus coming straight at you, then you just aim and kind of raise up and then it goes out. But when they're coming at an angle,
you're having to think of both.
You got to do all kinds of things. Well, this new Dragoon, you can sight in the first target, sight in the last target, tell it how many rounds you want it to fire. It'll calculate it all, and it'll adjust the orientation of the gun as it's firing the rounds so that all rounds impact at the same time versus,
So it's purposely lobbing some so it lands at the same time so that no one has time to...
Yeah, they all hit at the same time, yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, that's pretty legit.
That's pretty legit.
Like
you said yesterday. You
Yes.
said that right?
Legit.
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 Dude, the fuck. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Do you see... When you guys are looking like to the future and you're seeing some of the stuff happening in Ukraine right now, do you guys think both tanks and Apaches one day will be more autonomous, or do you think it's always going to be something that someone needs to be in there to control?
I'd say if you haven't looked up the Abrams X YouTube video, check that out.
Abrams X.
Abrams X. It's supposed to be the next gen of Abrams tank. It uses, according to the video, it uses a hybrid technology, so it's electric and diesel. It's a 3-man crew because it's got an auto loader, still a 120, but it's got a 30 millimeter Crow, remote station on it.
And you're saying diesel, it's like a turbo diesel. Like, is it a turbine that
so
actually...
The current Abrams engine's a turbine.
Turbine,
a jet engine.
It's a Blackhawk. Same helicopter engine.
That's
as
crazy.
a Blackhawk.
Why do they do that?
Just to the horsepower. Yeah, it's 1,500 horsepower. And, everybody's like, oh, well, it's a jet engine. It burns a lot of fuel, but when you're standing in front of the tank, you can't hear it. Like when it's coming towards you, you can't hear it.
Really?
Yeah.
A fucking tank?
Yeah. It's stupid quiet.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is, because all the exhaust's shooting out the back.
Yeah, you would think it would be the opposite.
But it's great in the wintertime, especially if you're an infantryman.
Just go behind.
Yeah, you want to see like the living dead in real life.
Just follow
Start up a tank in the middle of December and watch all the infantrymen come out of the wood line like,
oh, fuck, that's amazing. So it's the same turbine as a Blackhawk then?
Yeah, 7-1 Delta or Charlie.
yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But the new ones, the Abrams X is going to be electric.
Yeah, it's got a diesel engine and it's electric. And the crew's all in the hull. So they're all down in the hull. And the turret is,
Because the autoloader.
because of the autoloader. And it's all cameras. So, I And I always thought it would be great if you, I mean, just the camera on your cell phone is so small.
Yeah.
If you lined like 5 of those up around the front of the tank and got like a curved screen on the inside, like you could see everything as if the tank wasn't even there.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what they're going to.
Turning into like a VR almost kind of experience where you're seeing through.
Seeing everything.
Yeah.
Looks pretty interesting.
Interesting. What about Apaches? What do you think's next?
It's kind of a weird world.
Copters.
Even when I was in 8 years ago, the pilot overload was pretty intense because there's so much stuff going into it. Since they got rid of the Kiowa Scout, they've been using the Apaches in the Scout role, which is absolutely a capable aircraft, but it was designed to be a killer, not a Scout. So now they have this man-to-man teaming where, you know, you can capture the feed from a Predator and put it in the cockpit of the Apache. So you can actually take over the Predator and say, like, okay, look over here, look over this. And then, you know, Blue Force Tracker and all this stuff is just going out of the craziness. And so you're asking a pilot to be, you know, fly a helicopter in a 3-dimensional space as well as fly a Predator and hunt for bad guys.
Seems a little complicated.
It gets intense. But to say that, I think there will be a time when, obviously now they're doing Pred strikes in like Iraq and Iran, and we don't even have any troops on the ground supposedly, but you know there is. But it's like a lot of stuff is going to be autonomous, but I think you're always going to have a human element
to it.
Yeah.
I think you'll see a lot of configurable stuff to where it could be autonomous or it could be manned. You know, it depends on what the mission requires. Yeah. If it's a high-risk mission and there's going to be, you know, a certain risk that you're going to have to accept or assume, then they might put more autonomous stuff in there versus a lower risk, higher reward mission where you want to have a human element on the ground to ensure that, you know, those last split-second decisions are made, because I don't think we'll probably ever see we'll never get rid of the human aspect of it, I don't think.
Hopefully you don't, because that's the decision-making factor.
I think when we get rid of that, then it's like Terminator.
It's a little scary.
It's all Terminator after that.
I was going to say I freaking love your patch on your hat. You have that same one on your helmet, right?
Yeah, this was the patch. They made me take it off.
Tell
my
the
pilot.
people what you got on there.
Yeah, it says, you know, stop screaming, I'm scared too. And I had it on the back of my helmet running EMS, and the chief pilot's like, yeah, it's funny and it's good, but probably not something you should have on there.
The patients are having the worst day of their life, and they see that.
I was just trying to bring a little bit of, you know,
levity.
A little bit of lighten up the mood.
Oh, shit, man. Well, guys, thanks so much for coming.
Thanks for having us.
And